House Democrats have started to look for Nancy Pelosi's successor. The Washington Post reporting that Pelosi is expected to retire after November's midterm elections. And New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries is the early favorite to become the next Democratic leader. The Post adding that infighting between the party's far left and moderate wings could play a role in replacing Pelosi. There also could be a change soon to the filibuster rule if Chuck Schumer has his way. Of course, he's changed, moderated a bit on this. Back in 2017, this was Senator Chuck Schumer talking about the Senate's filibuster rules.
When a nominee doesn't get 60 votes, you shouldn't change the rules. You should change the nominee.
So you needed the 60 votes back then when you're talking about Supreme Court nominees. And of course, now, and you can see in the Wall Street Journal here, Chuck Schumer setting a mid-January deadline for possible filibuster changes. Democrats tie push on election laws to the anniversary of the January 6th attack on the Capitol by Trump supporters. You see what they did there. Let's welcome in now our panel, Democratic strategist and former Obama advance man Robin Biro. Morgan Zegers is here. She is the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. And also back with us, former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates. Great to have everyone with us. Robin, I want to start with you because I know you, unlike a lot of Democrats, understand the unintended consequences that we will, we're going to see this if Chuck Schumer and Democrats go ahead and change the filibuster rule. Republicans are going to take back control of Congress in a very short time. And what will happen then, Robin?
This is a tough one. This is a tough nut to crack because if we can't get the John Lewis voting rights bill passed, we're just dead to progressives and dead to most Democrats in not just the midterms, but headed to 2024. So this is tricky. I would just want to say that you are what you say you. You are what you do, not what you'll say you'll do. Mm-hmm. So we've got a situation here with Chuck Schumer where he said one thing years ago and is now doing another thing. And I have an issue with that. But if he's looking at protecting our chances in the midterms and 2024, I get it. He's just going to suffer some consequences politically that are going to be devastating.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear about what you're saying here, that the real reason why they're pushing so hard for this and why Chuck Schumer might risk it all in the filibuster is because their only hope to keep the party together is appeasing the far left, all the petulant progressives in the squad. That's the concern here, Robin.
Not just the far left, it's the party in general. I'm telling you that right now, the general sentiment is that if we can't, at a bare minimum, get a John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed, then we're done and we deserve to lose, frankly, not just the midterms, but 2024. Well,
geez, Morgan, it's not like they're asking that much. I mean, they only want to federalize our entire elections process. That's no big deal, right? I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh, as Robin was saying that, my heart was beating faster and faster because that's really concerning to know that it's not just a far left sentiment anymore to want something like that. It's a take by the whole party. Now, when you look at the behind the scenes, I'm a little nerdy with this stuff. I love investigating where the money is on the radical left and the establishment. And when you look at what's actually going on, this has been taking place ever since before 2018 when AOC beat an establishment Democrat, a Nancy Pelosi type, his name was Joe Crowley, in New York in a primary. So there's this socialist group called the Justice Democrats, and what they do is target these deep blue primary seats to replace Nancy Pelosi types with AOC types. And when you see what their goal is, it's that long-term bargaining power in Washington, D.C., because as they get more people in the progressive caucus, which is really the regressive caucus, because it's all socialist, and that never ends up with real progress, John, you know that. Yes. What's happening is when these seats open up, like Nancy Pelosi's leadership position, they have more bargaining power to replace a Nancy Pelosi type in a leadership position with a socialist in the progressive caucus. So that's what we're seeing play out, and it's their long game. They're very strategic for doing so.
Some call it nerdy, Morgan. Some call it wonky. I say here on this program, it is hip to be square when it comes to that important information. And this, Rick, is really the problem with Democrats. There is no real platform or ideology or any kind of philosophy that unifies them. When the Build Back Better bill failed and Joe Biden could not hand out all these pet projects to the progressives, then things really started to get ugly. And these are the consequences of that.
Yeah, if you track back to when Joe Biden ran, right, he came out with this whole agenda. Democrat Party was kind of split, didn't know if they wanted to moderate progressives, weren't sure if they were going to get some of their issues on board. Joe Biden's elected. He looks like he's, progressives are moving him. He's got this very progressive agenda, and it absolutely fails in the course of 2021. And he's got nothing to show. Chuck Schumer, being a seasoned senator, absolutely knows this. And he knows it's just not just about Biden, it's about the entire party. And they're going to get annihilated if they keep moving forward with the same agenda in the midterms. And so the further left the party goes, the better it is for Republicans. And as the party coalesces around people like Jeffries and AOC and others, that is great news for the Republicans because they're going to be able to establish much higher gains than I think most people expect as of now. It's
a bit of a catch-22, isn't it, Robin?
It definitely is a catch-22. And look, I've had my misgivings about Nancy Pelosi for years. I've voiced them on your show, but we're not really positioned that well for someone to replace her at the moment. And Hakeem Jeffries right now, my issue with him is that he comes from New York, and just like Nancy Pelosi comes from California, they see things differently than a Democrat, say, like me in Georgia.
This is important, and there is a gerontocracy in the Democratic Party. All the leadership is old. There has not been a very deep bench, considered. Relatively speaking, when you look at Republicans as well, and that's the problem that they're having right now. When you have someone like Nancy Pelosi with that much political power, it tends to, push others to the side. Let's also switch gears. I want to talk about the trouble with big tech, an ongoing conversation that we are having, and we continue to see the two kind of tiers of the way big tech companies treat conservatives versus liberals. Facebook has permanently disabled a conservative children's books publisher's account. They claim that the Heroes of Liberty failed to comply with its low quality or disruptive content policies. These books that they publish include biographies on President Reagan, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and Thomas Sowell. And, Morgan, of course, Facebook doesn't want the next generation learning about these conservative icons, do they?
Oh, of course not. I mean, one of my favorites is when the left does those articles on things like Prager University, when they're like, meet the inside massive conservative network brainwashing children freedom. And they act like that's a bad thing. So I love seeing that stuff. But this is a good reminder that socialism, which is only the economic step of communism, is not the only problem we're facing. We're facing two other really big things: authoritarianism with these COVID forced mandates, and then totalitarianism, which is this thought control, this information control. These are all very separate issues, but to combined, I mean, oh my gosh, we're really facing something moving forward in this country.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I say, Rick, in 2022, new year, new platforms. I mean, Facebook, Twitter, not getting it done. I know myself, a lot of others, Joe Rogan. I know Morgan's out there too. I don't know if you are, Robin, and Rick, if you guys are on Getter as well, and Rumble, they're out there now. I mean, it's getting harder and harder for these big tech platforms, Rick, to silence these voices of alternative thought and critical thought.
Yeah, I think it's a long time in coming, and Republicans needed almost something like this to get away from reliance on kind of the big tech companies. So now you've got Getter. You saw, Senator Rand going out, Rand Paul on avoiding Facebook and YouTube, and he's going to, just focus on other platforms. That's what needs to happen. The Republicans need to get key resources behind them, key money people that can support these types of networks and allow this freedom of speech and not having voices censored. And this is important. This is exactly why local elections are so important.
Right.
When we look at making the rules for all this stuff, it's not just Congress, it's local and state operations and offices that have to, make these rules. And that's the type of elections that we need to start focusing on as well. So it's not just the federal level, it's state level as well. It's extremely important.
Right, and that right there, Rick, when it comes to the importance of, especially, like Facebook, when it comes to local election and the ability of, a county commissioner or a school board candidate to influence a very small population, a very concentrated population. That's why, when you listen to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas talk about regulating these like public utilities, it starts to make sense that you would hear a conservative who is, against government regulation start to talk about regulating these entities like they are, in fact, public utilities. But
you just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.